Hi, today we're going to braise salmon. Now braising is a method of cooking where you first sear your protein and then you add your vegetables to it and your cooking liquid, and the cooking liquid actually becomes part of the sauce. Now the reason that this is such a healthy way of cooking is because we're going to use very, very little oil. We're going to use olive oil, which is once again a monounsaturated fat. Salmon is extremely high in omega-3 fatty acids, which can help your skin, it helps your joints. It's recommended that you eat probably 4 to 6 ounces of fish a week. And there's one thing I want to stress. You're going to hear me talk about stock an awful lot. This is the saffron stock that I made with saffron, pistils, and some fish bones and mirepoix, which is carrots, celery, and onions. What that does is it gives you a flavored medium to be able to cook your protein in other than water, and so it imparts more flavor. This is also no fat. There's no fat in this whatsoever. If you ever make stock, and you can make chicken stock, you can make beef stock, you can make turkey stock, vegetable stock, whatever. If there's a thin layer of fat on there after your stock cools down, take that fat off. And what that does is it gives you a non-fat, excellent cooking medium for soups, for sauces, and the like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my pan. And again, when you saute, we went over this in the sauteing portion, but we're going to talk about it again. When you saute, you only want to use a very small amount of fat. And by very small, I mean just enough to coat the pan, that's it, no more. Especially in something like this, because your sauce is actually going to be, your cooking liquid is going to be your sauce, and you don't want excess oil in it. It'll muddy the flavors. Now, while I was talking, I was salting my fish. You want to salt it right before it goes in the pan. You don't want to salt it too far beforehand, because what will happen is the salt will start to dry out your salmon. Now, for those of you that don't know what saffron is the pistils of a crocus flower. It takes 11 acres of crocus flowers to make 1 ounce of saffron. Saffron's been used for centuries for dyes, for medicines, for flavor. If you look at some of the rugs, especially the older ones from India, the color yellow is very, very similar to this color right here. That's because they use saffron as a dye. Okay, now these are approximately 4 ounces of salmon. This would be an ideal lunch size portion. For dinner size, you may want to go up to 6 ounces. But again, as Americans, our portion sizes are huge. So one of the things as culinary nutritionists that you need to pay attention to is the size of the portion that you're eating. If you don't like how you look, if you don't like how you feel, then it's time to make a change. And these suggestions may help you. So I've got my oil really, really hot. And the reason that I want to do that is because I want to sear the outside of the salmon. It's going to give it more flavor. Now there are several different types of olive oil. The type that I use for sauteing and for cooking is either a virgin or just a straight olive oil. There are many different classifications, the most expensive and the most flavorful being extra virgin. That means it comes from the first press of the olives. It tends to be the fruitiest and the most expensive, but I don't feel that for sauteing that adding that additional flavor component is necessary, because as soon as you apply heat to the olive oil, you start to lose that fruitiness. So you're basically and it's a lot more expensive, so you're basically just adding extra expense for not a lot of flavor return. But when you're talking about cooking, you want to maximize all the flavors that you possibly can. What good is food if nobody wants to eat it? So I've dropped my salmon down into a hot pan so we can start to look for what's called the Maillard reaction. And this is the caramelization of surface proteins. And this happens between 300 and 500 degrees. And this is what's going to give you that nice crunch and that nice mouthfeel. So when I start to see the color creep, that's the color creep that I'm talking about. I'm going to take this and turn it over. And you notice that I took the pan off the flame as soon as it started flaming inside the pan. I did that because you only want to flame something when it's got alcohol. If you flame a dish without alcohol, and if you're in the cooking process, the oil in the pan starts to burn, and it'll drag that burnt flavor down onto your food, and it'll make your food taste really strange. So I'm going to let this sear. This is a recipe that follows me all over the place, especially during Secretary's Week. I would run this a lot. It's right. Secretary's Week is generally in the spring. People are trying to get back in shape for summer. But if you eat like this all year long, you won't have to worry about getting back in shape for summer. You'll already be there. So what I'm going to do now is I like to eat my salmon about medium rare. Anymore, and I find that it really dries it out, and you start to lose that really good salmon flavor. One of my big knocks on cooking fish is that most people really tend to overcook it to where it just has no flavor whatsoever that you find desirable. So what I'm doing now is I'm draining out the oil. Not much. It's pretty darn good. Now I'm going to start building my dish. I've got some julienne potatoes in here. I'm going to add them here. A really good rule of thumb, as far as nutrition goes, is to strive to eat as many colors a day as you possibly can. Now, the blanching and shocking video that I did, the blanching shocking segment of this is where all of those disciplines start to come in handy. Because a lot of these vegetables we had to blanch and shock to get so that they'll cook correctly. The potatoes, the green beans, the carrots. Now I'm going to add some of our blanched and shocked garlic. Then I'm going to let these start to heat up. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my saffron stock. I seasoned it with a little bit of lemon juice and of course salt and pepper, because you just can't cook without salt and pepper. So now I'm going to let this sit for just a minute and start to steam. But if you look at this, we've got the pink of the salmon, we've got the orange of the carrots, we've got the green of the zucchini and the Kentucky Wonder Beans. We've got the yellow of the yellow squash, red of the tomatoes and the bell peppers, and the white of the potatoes. So we've really got kind of pretty much a whole day's worth of color right here. But if you think about back in the day, the way that people used to eat, they would eat very close to the ground, because we didn't have planes, trains, and automobiles bringing ingredients from coast to coast. You basically had to eat what was available to you, and that was whatever was locally grown on the nearby farm. We've gotten away from eating like that, which is why we're beginning to see higher and higher incidences of obesity. It shocks and amazes me when I see kids that should be out playing around that can barely run or walk because they're so heavy. This is the first generation of children who will not outlive their parents, and a lot of this is dietary. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You can either make changes now while you have a choice, or you can make them later because you have to. There really are only two avenues. You can eat healthy for a long life, or you can eat badly for a miserable life. So this is some fresh oregano. Whenever you add your herbs, when you add dried herbs, you add them at the beginning of the cooking process, and when you add fresh herbs, you add them at the end. So we're just about done with our cooking right here. Our vegetables are nicely julienned, and that's a hot pan, be careful. So I'm going to set this up. This not only looks good, it tastes good, and it's good for you. So and you want a little bit of architecture or some height, because people eat with their eyes first. So what I'm going to do with this, turn this burner off. We're going to pour that right over the top. Now, here in Santa Fe today, it's snowing outside and it's cold. This would be the ideal thing to eat on a day like this. And there we go. So that's our braised salmon saffron in fish stock with julienne vegetables. Thanks.